And I don't think the problem of animal abuse and omnivorism is any different in China than it is in America. Everybody has this false belief that they eat. Every time I talk to somebody from a different ethnicity, they say, oh, but I'm Filipino. We really eat a lot of meat over there. Like, you eat more meat than we eat in America, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everybody does animal flesh for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's not worse in China or in India than it is anywhere else. And if I happen to get America or Israel or Italy to go vegan first, that's still a victory. And then we'll just move on to another country and get them to go vegan. That's how it's going to work. I doubt it's all going to happen at once. There's going to be a mass revelation, an epiphany, and the whole world's going to go vegan overnight. Change, unfortunately, doesn't happen that way. I mean, we can look right now in many parts of the world. Women, for example, have achieved equal status, but in most parts of the world, they haven't. So just like women's rights isn't going to happen all at once, neither will animal rights. But you keep on talking and preaching and teaching, and you get women's rights over here, and animal rights over here, human rights over here, animal rights over here, and then eventually we're going to have a peaceful planet where everybody can be treated fairly and equally. First, on the issue of tactical violence, I want people to go to my website, ADAPT, A-D-A-P-T-T, adapt.org. I want you to click Other Animal Rights Issues, and then click What's Wrong with Violence, and actually read the essays that I've written instead of bits and pieces online. And I want to further now talk about the issue of violence. I don't believe anyone is really opposed to violence, especially after talking to 60,000 people. In fact, in Israel last month, I proved this to every crowd because I was asked about the issue of violence. So I said to the crowd, raise your hand if you are opposed to the Allied forces going into Auschwitz and Birkenau and murdering Nazis to save Jews and gypsies and homosexuals. Not one person raised their hand. So let me clarify this. No one's opposed to violence. People are just opposed to who I propose to be violent for, the animals. Nobody thinks animals are worthy enough to receive violence on their behalf. Well, I think the chickens and the turkeys and the pigs and the cows disagree vehemently, and I disagree too. In fact, if you want to think about this further, if you had a pacifist, and you had somebody like me who does practice pacifism but believes that violence has its place, would you want a pacifist fighting for you? Or would you want me fighting for you? Because I'm going to get you out. I'm going to get you out of the torture chamber. I'm going to get you out of the slaughterhouse. The pacifist is going to hold aside and say, hey, please set them free. I'm going to go in with guns drawn. And let me explain this too. If I went into a slaughterhouse and had guns drawn, and people had knives against the throats of pigs, and I said, you drop your knives. The killing is over. It's done. Let them go. It's over. I'm the one doing the noble act. I'm stopping the murderers, because unfortunately, there's a segment of our population that won't stop no matter what until you put a gun to their head, until you treat them like the victims are treated. And I want to clarify something else, because during this essay on violence I wrote a line that said that I think that women in fur coat and men in fur coats, I said men too, should be raped. The reason I said that is because foxes in the fur industry are anally electrocuted, standard method of death. Take a steel rod, lift up a fox's tail, shove it in their ass, and electrocute them. That's a rape. Chinchillas in the fur industry, standard method of death is vaginal electrocution. So they're raping animals right now. I hope that rapists get raped. And when the rapists stop raping the animals, I'll stop wishing that the rapist get raped. Please understand what I say, what I'm saying there. They're the ones bringing this on themselves. If they didn't rape and kill and pillage and murder, I wouldn't wish anything horrible on them. And I want to clarify this too about my wishes. My wishes don't come true. It's a wish of mine. I'm not asking anybody to do this. I hope that evil things happen to evil people. I'm sorry, I just can't bring it in my heart to have any empathy and love for evil people. I hope Nazis get raped. I hope child molesters get raped. I hope rapists get raped. I hope murderers get raped. I hope people that do evil things have evil things happen to them. And that's the whole point of my essay. I know people want me to be Gandhi, but I'm not. I don't claim to be Gandhi. In fact, if you ask me, my hero is early Malcolm X, who also supported a violent retaliatory response. And that's all I'm saying. If the time comes when we have to pick up arms, take arms, bear arms to go liberate the animals, we're going to be on the right side of justice. Just like the Allied forces were on the right side of justice. Pacifism, unfortunately, is what allows victims to be victimized. Pacifism doesn't solve problems of torture and abuse. It's a nice notion. It's a cute story. And let me say this again. For 11 years, straight years, that's all I do is pacifist lectures. I educate people. Okay? But it doesn't liberate the animals completely. It helps. I don't think the whole movement should change from its pacifist ways and take up arms, but I think violence needs to be part of this revolution like it's been part of every revolution that has ever existed. There's a big lie out there that Dr. King liberated blacks in America. No, he didn't. The Black Panthers were part of that movement too. Malcolm X was part of that movement too. It wasn't all Dr. King, and it wasn't all Gandhi in India either. Most of his followers killed British soldiers, set fires and riots. And let me bring one more thing up about pacifism. Gandhi, who I admire a lot, okay? But pacifism can be taken too far, just like violence can be taken too far. Do you know what Gandhi's solution to the Holocaust was? He thought that all the Jews should have committed suicide to rouse the conscience of the world to their plight. Well, I admire the Mahatma a lot, but let me say this. Okay, the Mahatma lost his fucking mind when he said that Jews should have committed suicide. That is completely psychotic, and this is how pacifism cannot always be the answer. The Jews shouldn't have had to kill themselves because they were being tortured and killed by Nazis. The Nazis needed to be murdered, and they were. That stopped it. Another myth out there, too, if I can say one more thing, is that violence begets violence. Boy, pacifists love to say violent. There's no proof to that. What was the violence after the Allied forces killed the Nazis? No, that violence stopped violence. It didn't create any more violence. It stopped it dead in its tracks. It's over. So my point is, don't be so quick to condemn a violent response. I'm not asking people to blow up McDonald's. Okay, that's insane. Okay, those people are robots. You need to teach the robots, you need to deprogram and unbrainwash people. But the direct killers, the direct abusers of animals, sometimes need more than a lecture and a demonstration. I don't say this with glee. It doesn't make me happy to say all this stuff that I just said. I wish people understood logic and compassion. Sadly, a lot of people don't. And it's kind of interesting, too, that meat eaters and people that wear fur coats and hunters and vivisectionists condemn the violence that I wish about when they're committing it every single day. They kill, let's not forget, meat eaters and people that wear fur coats. They're the most violent people on this planet. It's all kind of irrational and illogical and unfair, too, that people who are violent condemn a violent response to their violence. Veganism is the most ethical way to live, and that's why people choose veganism. It causes the least amount of pain and suffering intentionally on this planet. So that's why there's so many people wanting to be vegan. It's the same reason I chose veganism. I don't want to cause pain and suffering to somebody that has never harmed me or harmed anyone else on this planet. I mean, when was the last time a chicken or a cow attacked a human being? How about never? A pig, a turkey, never. We're the ones that attack them. So it's logical to want to be vegan, to want to reduce and eliminate pain and suffering. Even though we have fantasies sometimes about harming people that harm animals, it's logical. It's not psychotic to want to harm somebody that's murdering somebody else. I mean, again, if you have love for Nazis, you need to see a psychiatrist. If you want to protect a child molester, you need to seek some serious medical help. There are certain people that are not worthy of having there are certain people that are not worthy enough to be treated fairly and equally. When you violate somebody else's right to be free, I think you've given up your right to be treated fairly and freely and equally as well. And I'm not running around attacking people. I don't have a machete or a 9mm. Okay, I'm not shooting anybody. When I talk about the violence that needs to happen, that will happen one day, I'm explaining that I'm not going to condemn it. And I think it would be wrong for any animal rights person to condemn an act of justified violence against somebody who victimizes innocent beings. I'm shocked that people are so shocked when I wish rape upon somebody that's evil. At least in America, every time a child molester or a rapist gets sent to prison, people make a joke, and it's, I can't wait till Bubba or Tyrone gets a hold of him in prison. All the time people wish rape on somebody else. The problem is, see, we all accept that child molestation and rape are evil. We just don't accept that murdering animals and raping animals and anal electrocution of foxes are evil. That's the only difference. It's not it's not the rape thing. People wish it all the time on somebody that's bad. And about capital punishment, I'm going to go back to the same thing. If you've taken away somebody else's right to live, if you violated somebody else, a child molester, rapist, or murderer, those are only 3 groups of criminals that should be executed, you've given up your right to be treated fairly and equally. On top of that, since animals suffer the most and people in prison are eating animals, it's illogical to want to keep people alive in prison because then beautiful animals have to be murdered and killed to feed a child molester? You've got to be out of your mind. I wouldn't kill a tick on the back of a mosquito to save a child molester. And people, you know, we get asked this question all the time. Who was drowning? If a human was drowning or an animal was drowning, who would you save? Well, it depends who the human was. You going to save Jerry Sandusky, the Penn State coach that just got convicted of raping like 50 children? Are you really going to go up in a canoe and save his life? I'm going to take the oar and I'm going to hit him over the head and make sure that he drowns. I would never, there are so many groups of humans that aren't worth saving at all. But people are so in love with humans and so full of vengeance and so full of hate against animals, people will make illogical statements like, oh, all human life is valuable. No, it's not. Look around the planet. Most human life is not valuable. In fact, I can prove this to you. Do you know if you removed humans from this planet, the removal of our species would benefit everything that exists? It would benefit not only the animals, it would benefit the insects, it would benefit the water, the air, the mountains. If we're the only ones that are expendable on this planet, why do people think we're so important? Because if you took the ants off this planet, the whole system would collapse. The bees, and the bees are dying off. If you've been following the news for the last 10 years, when the bees go, we're about 2 to 3 years behind the bees. That's how valuable bees are. Take us out, everything gets better. Now, as I say this, I don't think it has to be this way. Again, this is why I want to educate people and talk to people and teach them how to live compassionately and altruistically and peacefully on this planet. But right now, we've gone awry. We're like the worst bacteria that has ever existed on this planet. And peace begins at the dinner table. Again, if you can start giving compassion to the animal kingdom, to the insect kingdom, then you start living peacefully with the planet and with each other. I don't want any innocent being being executed by our governments. Okay, I want DNA to be used. Okay, but there are certain cases where people are flat out guilty of rape, child molestation, and murder. There's no question about it. And keeping these people alive for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and killing thousands of innocent animals to feed them, that's insane. That's a completely insane position if you care about innocent beings and you care about justice. Certain humans have to be cut loose.